to this item. There was no reportable action from the original meeting that we had, and now nor from the second meeting that we are attempting to have today. And I'm happy to, again, I'll just wait a moment for Amanda.
I hope she got the link.
I sent her an email, so she should have gotten it. So, but I'll check in with her right now. Thank you. Again, we apologize for the technical difficulties.
Don, Director Saylor has not yet received the number, and he would like that to be forwarded to him. It's okay. I'm responding to him, telling him we intentionally left him out. Just kidding.
We had Amanda without Amanda.
That's a real irony when we leave one meeting with our speaker to another meeting with no speaker.
Confirming that Amanda is present. Amanda, does it show you any audio options on your screen for you to connect to? There we go. Hi, Amanda. Can you hear us okay?
I can. Thank you.
Great.
And so great. So thanks so much. Before we get going, I just want to, I assume so, but someone has resent or sent the link to Director Saylor.
Chair Frericks, I sent the link to all of our strategic planning committee members, so they all should have it. I sent it in both their calendar appointment update and a separate email.
Great.
So I'll text him just to let him know.
Thank you very much. Thanks.
Yes.
Appreciate that. So, well, thanks so much, Amanda, for joining us today. So for members of the committee, just want to remind folks that, the economic prosperity obviously is one of this agency's, top 3 goals. Of course, connected communities and vibrant places are the others, but, clearly this topic is more important now than ever, due to the issues that we are experiencing, economic impact due to the pandemic. I think that it's even more important to have close business, relationships with the business community, certainly. And, that we can leverage what we can here at SACOG, such as transportation funding and, potential influence at the state capitol. But it's also imperative that we do everything we can to get our feet back up on our feet again. And as a region in a way that builds us, even stronger economy in the long term. So, and then one last quick note, which is just, the prosperity strategy, folks will recall, it will get released later this month, and it aligns with the SEDS document that's also being finalized. And, this prosperity strategy is an important direction that SACOG can and should help in, along with our other business, partners in the community. So thank you so much, Amanda. We really appreciate you, joining us. So with that, we'll kick it over to Amanda Blackwood.
Hello. So good to see everybody. When James asked for this in about 15 minutes, kind of give some insight into maybe where we have been, where we are, and where we're going. And I want to address a little bit about that, and then really in that recovery phase, the path forward, the prosperity strategy work, and how that really may affect decisions that you may be making. So let's kind of go 30,000 feet, and I would break up what we're experiencing into 3 distinct sets of time. So that very first set of time, which was early March to, knock on wood, early May, is what we are calling the react period of time. And that was, oh my God, we need to stop what we're doing. We need to get a handle on what's happening health-wise. Businesses are shut down. That very first, really our first reaction is to just pause. And during that period of time, from a business perspective, what we were really looking for is how can we give quick, immediate, rapid, triage-like support to our businesses so that they can either position for reopening, stay open if they were an essential business, or give them the resources that they need to quickly make some pivots. So the things that we're seeing regionally happen within this period of time, I'll name a couple, but there are others. From a Metro Chamber standpoint, we really saw that the access to just direct, accurate, timely information was really, really needed, maybe that kind of end of March, early April period of time. So as the governor would put out a new order, we would get an influx of calls. Can I even be open? I don't understand how to read this. Can I, I see a competitor open, but they're a different size. Can I? So it was really kind of that space of just accurate, timely information so that people could make those really, really quick decisions. Then we saw, okay, now we've got the CARES Act coming online with the PPP, with the EDA loans. I don't know how that works. How would I even begin to do that? So a lot of the organizations started to pivot towards providing accurate information in that space. And we as the Metro Chamber felt like everybody is trying to listen to these press conferences, synthesize them, and create their own materials. What might it look like if we truly could just be an aggregator of information and have it in a place that everyone had access to it? All of our business community, Capital Region wide, member, non-member, whatever. We just really want our business communities to be supported. So many of you know we reached out to you, and many of you were huge partners in helping us financially stand up what we call the Rapid Response Hub. And that is a one-place, website-based, provides information for employers, employees, and jurisdictionally specific information for those businesses in those communities so they could just understand what the heck was going on and begin the process of trying to make strategic decisions. So the Web Hub has now been up and running now for almost 5 weeks. We're seeing increases in access to that. So we originally had about 2,000 hits a week. We're now up between 4,000 and 5,000 hits a week, depending on the information. So very much that regional place to just go get accurate information and know how to make the next decision. Within that phase, there was also a lot of partnering. So you've got the PBIDs coming together, the chambers coming together, Greater Sacramento Economic Council coming in with their data, Valley Vision coming, STACOG being a huge partner. So it was really kind of this phase of we're all in this together. Anybody who's got any information, let's try to aggregate it and get it out to folks so they can make decisions. What we then saw, however, was for those businesses that are, maybe a little bit more sophisticated, so not necessarily your super micro or your small business or your minority owned business, but kind of that mid-tier level, they knew what they were looking for. So you've got folks, I know what my books are, I know what my payroll is, I understand how to take on debt, I'm making very strategic choices. There was also this whole world of small business that, as you all know, what they're good at is the thing that they do, the chiropractor, or I make jams, or I have a small retail store, or I sell antique plumbing parts. Whatever it is that they're really, really great at is what they know how to do. Running a business is not necessarily where their expertise is, and particularly in the areas of the payroll accounting or the year-over-year financials or the backup or any of that was really going to be needed to apply for those loans. we really saw that that small business didn't have that. And during this phase was also just this crushing demand. So remember the reality of how this all came about. PPP, EDL, that's all going to be available. The regs come out on a Thursday night. The banking partners needed to be up and running by Friday, and you just had this crush of applications. So many of our commercial lenders were in a space where if I don't already know my customer, which is a formal process that they have to go through, if I don't already have that, I'm not going to be able to extend any credit at this time. So, you know, you had that experience of, you know, probably okay business, mid-level employer, already have a commercial banking relationship, you could get into that pipeline. Small business, don't have a commercial banking relationship, really got pushed out of kind of all of those programs, and that happened really, really fast, and that caused kind of a lot of anxiety. So as regional business group, we started to see the website's great, and we sent all these people to all these resources, but now they're trying to navigate it and they can't figure it out, and it's maybe even more stressful hopping from banker to banker to banker and be told no. So we were able to partner with, again, a variety of you, partner with the Asian Chamber to set up a hotline. So we now have countywide, absolutely free business hotline, originally set up to help people through this process. Agents in English, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Mandarin. And again, that was really focused on the HR components, because at the same time, we had the Families First Coronavirus Response Act. So folks were trying to figure out, do I lay people off? Do I not? How does unemployment work? That kind of world of questions, as well as I'm just actively seeking financing and help me kind of navigate that. So that's really how that began. So I would summarize up, that is what we are calling this react phase of time. Quick response, quick triage, trying to get resources out as soon as possible. What we're now seeing is a movement into phase 2, which we're going to call restart. And this is the phase that our business community is currently at, saying, okay, I heard what the governor said. I understand that there are a number of indicators that need to be met for me to open, but what are they? And how do I know when I hit them? And how might I get as prepared as I possibly can now in the space of, do I get the thumbs up, right? I'm now, am I a phase 2 business? Am I a phase 3 business? Where am I at? So that I can try to get myself reopened. Then that practical of, what does a reopening toolkit look like? What equipment do I need to have? What training do I have to give? Very like practical, technical, thank you for the thumbs up, but now what do I do? And so you're still seeing those organizations that coalesced in phase 1 are now coalescing in phase 2 to say, here's your toolkit, here's your checklist, here's by industry. Let me get that into your hands so that you can start that process of reopening, training, and ordering. And I think regionally, where we're going to see some challenges, the actual acquisition of the PPE or the personal protective equipment that will be required. So we're very actively working with partners to try to source that quantity. I will share with you that from some of the larger suppliers, particularly for masks, many of them come from Asia, and having some conversations at a state level are feeling like I could sell all of my inventory to the largest employers nationally, internationally, and I don't want to do a bunch of small business deals. So this region is very much coming together to say, how might we pool some resources so that we can draw down PPE supplies in volume so that our small businesses aren't left behind, you know, small, mid-sized, large, even aren't left behind because the Disneys of the world are getting up and running and it's kind of gobbling up all of the supply. So we're really focused right now in this mid phase, very clear checklist on what you need to do, very clear understanding of what equipment is supplied and sourcing that equipment so that we have it. And we anticipate that this phase is going to be over the next 2 months. So if our first 8 weeks was, you know, gut check, triage, react, our next 8 weeks is going to be just going through those technical steps of getting back up and running. And what does that look like if you had employees that you laid off thinking that was the right thing to do, and now you have a PPP and you're trying to figure out how your loan functions? How does it look with folks particularly in retail and hospitality that are currently on unemployment that may want those benefits to run through August and are not feeling, a huge urgency to get back to the workplace. What does that look like from a mental health aspect? That you've got, okay, I'm open, I got the sanitizers, I got all the stuff I was supposed to get, but folks are still obviously dealing with an abundant amount of unknown, anxiety. They may still have kids at home. So if there's not a childcare solution, what does that look like for the business community? And, all those things that people are trying to plan, because obviously, as you all know, business survives off of the known. And if I know timeframes, if I can model, then I can make strategic decisions. In a world of unknown, it's really difficult to make those choices. So again, that's kind of the 8 weeks that we're beginning, which is the good news. We're back on that recovery train, but also how do we do that smartly? How do we do that responsibly? And how do we do that without unintentionally spiking infection rates or any other metric that's going to perhaps trigger that, we need to scale back again. And, from your business constituents, it's very much top of mind for them that I don't want to start and then have to come back. So how might I do that as quickly as possible, but without unintended consequences? And then our third phase, which we'll start to go into, is truly the recovery phase. And that we anticipate to be over the next 18 to 24 months. The really key factors in that being, 1, do we have testing? 2, do we have adequate treatment? And then 3, a vaccine is far away, but is still something obviously that is going to help, ubiquitously open the doors and take away a lot of that maybe consumer fear. So again, kind of let me just get you stabilized. Now let's restart, and now let's really think about the future. So big picture, where the good news is if we look at our kind of Sacramento timeline and say in 2008, we experienced a recession, not a pandemic recession, but a recession nonetheless. And at that time, a lot of work done on Next Economy to create a plan. And what was great about that work is it was very data-based, it was sector-based, it gave us a lot of input into where our region was at and where we had opportunity. What was unfortunate about that work is it didn't really come to culmination at the time, right? It was more of a 2010, 2011 rollout. So by that time, we're knee deep in recession. The good news of the Path Forward prosperity strategy work is that you are wrapping it up at just the right moment, right? We've got a roadmap forward on what our high growth industries look like, the areas of our economy that we really need to double down on, and we have that information at the right time, as we are starting this restart phase, and we are able to start that with a data and evidence-based approach. So a little of a reminder, because I know we've been working on it for some time, on prosperity strategy, it went back to Brookings 2 years ago, did the stress test, told us where we were strong, told us where we weren't. All of that is still true. And maybe to Lucas's point, it may be even more true now, or more of a sense of urgency now on acting on some of those indicators than we even were mentally 4 months ago, when we were really just thinking about how might we expand prosperity. Now we're very much thinking, how do we restart as quickly and responsibly as possible and make those big picture decisions that are going to set us up for the future. So Reader's Digest on prosperity strategy, which will be rolling out in the next couple of weeks, was really based on 3 key principles. 1, that we have to scale business. 2, that we have to support our people. And 3, we have to develop place. We really want that umbrella and lens to be on every decision that we're making. And we want to look at what are those core tradable sector business clusters that are going to give the capital region the biggest opportunity to not only compete nationally, but to truly create that prosperous economy, rural, urban, connecting all of our neighborhoods to those industries with the highest growth potential. And again, those are food, ag, and health science, life sciences, and advanced mobility. And again, if we were positioned well a year and a half ago when we started this, we were positioned even better now. So those are going to be the strategies that we're really starting to look towards while we're getting our businesses back up and running, while we're making major infrastructure decisions such as rural broadband and access to 5G. You know, we're now in a business climate in which, you know, business obviously needed it, but now the ubiquitous nature of telehealth and what does distance learning look like? And what does a work from home that's now, you know, a hybrid work model? I think we've experienced a moment in time in which we have faced market disruption. And, you know, not all of that is bad. I mean, when you're looking at cars on the road and we have air quality improvements that are different than, you know, we were looking at before. So it's just, you know, it's business, but it's not business as usual. And we are in this really interesting time in which we could build back everything that we previously had, or we can build for the future that we really, really want to see based on data, based on assets that this region has. And if we can truly align our spending and our policy and our workforce work to advance these three clusters, then we can put people back into the workforce in high growth careers. We can advance the opportunities that this region has that nobody else does nationally, and we can really, really, truly be a competitive region for the long term. So with that reset, you know, we get the opportunity to rethink some of how we normally behave and some of the decisions we normally make to position for this future. So I think, you know, that's my 30,000 foot kind of rapid report out. But, you know, I will let you know that businesses are ready to go. I mean, they want to get back to work. They want to do it responsibly. They want to do it right. But they're ready to really start that process, and folks are ready to engage and they're ready to connect. And we have this time to really start to create the future that we want. We will have a future either way, but it will be one by default or one by design. And I frankly am very thrilled that those decisions are being made by these folks on this call, because you are those forward-thinking leaders that are willing to, you know, to just get through this, be the soldiers that you have been to try to help folks through. And now, you know, we get to start that process of strategic thinking. And the prosperity strategy is coming out just at the perfect time. So I think that's where my mind is at. Are there any questions or anything I can help with?
Thanks very much, Amanda. Appreciate that overview and update. Any directors? I'm looking, let me pull up the, I don't see any hands raised in the sidebar. Any directors with questions or comments? And also I want to offer James an opportunity as well to provide some thoughts and feedback. Any directors yet? Comments, questions? Ricky?
Hi, Amanda. This is Ricky Samayo, Mayor of Marysville. How are you?
Good.
It's great to hear what you had to say. I wish I could have recorded and invited our Chamber of Commerce to participate. I just kind of listened to what you guys have been working, what your kind of plans are. So I'm going to try to make sure that our chamber gets a hold of you guys as well, so you guys can provide some assistance. I have one thing that I was curious about, PPE, especially for care, private, nonprofit, public childcare is going to be pretty key to kind of get things going as we get the workforce back. And you said something about PPEs and trying to find a way that you can get those or accessible or provide a ways or means to get them to those folks that might need it at the childcare center specifically.
Great question. So, you know, the long and short of it was, you know, we went to some large firms and said, hey, can we lock down a promise for you that we would get this kind of volume in our region? And they basically said, no. If you want a big order from us, place an order. So compete like Disney competes. And if you can order 100,000 of them, then we'll consider it. But we're not going to ship it. We're not going to warehouse it. We're not going to distribute it. We're not going to do any of that. You need to figure that out. So, okay, well, let's figure that out. So I talked to the folks last week at Pride, right? And this is what they're built for: warehousing, assembly, distribution. They already have their portal. So the step right now is I have another call today with the other organizations that are trying to source materials, but we need to make an estimation on your community on how much you need, really, and being mindful of, I've got macro data of how many businesses that you have, but if you could tell me, hey, I know I have 4,000 small businesses in my area with, roughly this employee count, then we're pricing out that order to say, what would it be to source a kit? And that's really how we're looking at it, is if you've got to have masks, you've got to have gloves, those are required. And then, you kind of have others that the sanitizer you could or could not have, whatever. So we're just pricing out what would a kit cost, and it goes to prep. We buy all the stuff, so we need funding, right? So I can broker the deal, but we need jurisdictional funding so we can make this big order. We ship it all to Pride. They warehouse it. They use their team to create the kit. They have a portal where your small businesses can order through there, and they can ship direct. That's the most efficient way, but it's also the most expensive way. An area where we can save some costs are we can order the stuff, they can warehouse it, they can kit it, and then if you have a location in your community that folks are already coming, like for drive-through testing or food banks, or a location which is already getting traffic, then imagine, your small business pulls up and go get your kit, and it's got in it your checklist, and it's got, the majority of the things that you need. So obviously a lot of opportunity there, but opportunity for unintended consequence, like what if somebody wants to buy 50 of them? What if so we need to think through how that would work. But what I do know is I'm not going to allow our region to not get its stuff because we didn't create a compelling order. So let me just tackle that first, and then I'll figure all the rest of it out later. But that's the thinking, and it's not really complicated. It's just give me volume, give me money, I'll make it work, and then we can get it all out to your folks. And I would be remiss if I didn't say, from a chamber perspective, I should have said this, 2 things to know to tap into if you're not, or if your community wants to. One, about 4 weeks ago, we assembled a group under the umbrella of Chambers United, and we do a weekly call. All of the chambers are more than welcome, and we talk through shared resources, just trying to not duplicate any work, and knowing particularly your chambers in your cities that are smaller are probably really struggling, and they may have a staff of 1, a staff of 1 or 2. So how might we, as the Metro Chamber, I've got staff, I've got the ability to do it. You don't need to duplicate the work. Put your logo on it, put your name on it, do whatever you want so that it can get to your folks. We piloted that with the hub. I think it was really successful. So we do that once a week. Please encourage your chambers to participate if they would like. Many of them do, looking at the faces here. We don't want anybody to be struggling, trying to create stuff that already exists. And we, Metro Chamber, about, 5 weeks ago, we started a daily call. So we call it our business task force. We did a daily call every morning from 8:30 to 9, and that was very Sac City focused. We're now at a point where, we're not in triage anymore, so we need to expand that. So know that invitations will go out to all of you to have that really be a principals only space to you're going to get a congressional briefing, you'll get an SBA briefing, if we want to do a county briefing, whatever we want to use that space for. But no, I've got your Congress folks and your SBA on the line every day, and there's no reason that we need to keep duplicating that. So there will be some invitations out on that, just to keep information as timely and quick as we possibly can, so that you can report back to your folks.
Great, thanks very much, Amanda, for that. I know that certainly, like, the Davis Chamber has been really involved in with the Metro Chamber, so really appreciate those. I've been hearing from our executive director of the Davis Chamber, Corey Kohler, about it. So thank you so much for all that collaboration. Other folks, Christopher, yep.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chair, and I've got to hop off in a moment. Just we're having we're putting together an effort to deal with the contact tracing side of the equation between the 2 cities, the city of Sacramento and West Sacramento, and the county public health officers and the community colleges to rapidly stand up a certification and training program, and then also connected to high school career pathways and to CTE programs in both law enforcement and health. So we're trying to get this set up really quickly. And just to emphasize the importance of that, the contact tracing piece, testing alone isn't sufficient in order to reach the stage of reopening that we hope to get to. And we have to have a dramatically bigger contact tracing surge workforce than we have today in order to accomplish that. So it's a really critical challenge. And although the governor and CDC have both made big announcements about 100,000 needed or 10,000 needed, there actually isn't really any sort of working plan at the ground level yet. So we're trying to put something together that we can make quickly to scale to the regional level. I just wanted to say, Amanda, thank you for your presentation and for the tone of it in particular. I think, early stage in some of our economic development friends were like, hey, it's all going to be fine, and don't worry, corporate numbers are looking good, the stock market's going to rebound, and blah blah blah, and we just need to get back to where we were. And there's just so much so much dislocation. Those of us that are in government may not, we may not feel, oh my God, I have another Zoom meeting, or it's whatever, but we're working, and we still have purpose, and the city is not going to disappear tomorrow, and that's not the experience for so many people. And so we can't, as you say, we can't just reopen what we had before. We have to build some. This is an opportunity to deal with some of the issues that Brookings had outlined for our region around inclusive economic development and everything. Now, I mean, we got a reboot. And it is an opportunity to say, okay, if we're hitting the on button again, how are we gonna change things? So I really appreciate the way that you described it and the focus on small business in particular, and also that we're not moving from what was now the past to some bright new future. We're still in an emergency. We're still in a crisis, and we will be for some time. It's just going to be radically different than it has been. But we're not anywhere near. I mean, Mr. Sanders, the expert on this, not any of us, but we're nowhere near the point where we're wash our hands of it. Okay, we did it, and being back in this situation a second time would be debilitating, both economically, but also it would be very the first time around. I know in my city, rallying the community around what it took in order to flatten the curve, the community stepped up. Broad scale, compliance with the orders and all of that, because we were out there, going to battle to fight this thing. And the sense that we were getting it done is a powerful social psychology around making sure that we do it. If it comes back again because we're not, because we let our guard down, or we're like, oh, well, we did it, good for us. If it comes back again, we're not going to have the same, people will not respond in the same way, because we will have been defeated the first round. And so it is absolutely essential that we do this right in terms of the reopening. And so the focus that you've described, both on new economy, but also on just getting down to brass tacks, whether what we're doing in contact tracing or what you're doing on PPE, we got to do it in order to make the reopening and the new economy what it should be. So I really appreciate what you had to say today and the work that the Chamber is doing. And I really apologize, Mr. Chairman, for having to step off.
Thanks very much, Christopher. Really appreciate it, and hope that next call goes well for you. We're losing a couple other directors as well, folks. Director Saylor says he is going to be dropping off, and I think Director Stallard had to drop off as well too. So, James, any sort of final questions or comments, or other directors with questions or comments, particularly for Amanda? And oh yeah, David, I'm sorry, I see your hands raised now. My apologies.
Yeah, just a quick comment. I could second everything Christopher just said. But clearly there's this almost mystique about testing out there. And Amanda, I heard you say testing. I'm not sure anyone really understands the context of testing or where it might be useful or not useful. And I'll just use a story. We've got a grocery store here that's done an outstanding job of managing this crisis. It's locally owned, very big store. You may know about it, the International Market in Rancho Cordova. And he very much wanted to test all of his employees to determine whether or not they had the virus. And it only takes a couple of minutes of discussion to figure out that that's almost a pointless exercise. Because obviously you could be tested this morning, catch it at noon, and be spreading it by tomorrow. So unless you're going to test everybody every morning, which is not feasible, it's not a useful exercise. There's a lot of biology that can be learned from testing. We now have some clinical outcomes that can be determined by testing, but just mass testing, the way politicians have been talking about it is ridiculous from a scientific point of view. It's not what you want. It's not helpful. It's counterproductive in some ways. So Amanda, when you talk about that, I'm just curious, you know, what kind of testing is a need for business to reopen?
So that's a great question, David. And I had this particular conversation with Alan Zarenberg the other day, right? The CEO at Cal Chamber, to try to get an understanding from a statewide standpoint. And really the answer would be in two buckets. There is one part of recovery that is very science-based, right? It's to your point that if each person was tested and each person that has it is now traced and each person is tracked and each person, that is a scientific way of going about it, and you would have data and everyone would understand it. The whole other part of this, which is maybe even the more important part, and been on many calls with US Chamber about it, is the consumer mindset and their level of comfortability being out in the marketplace. So for instance, right, there is a push on if we could just get childcare squared away over the summertime, right? That would be the biggest thing that we could do to try to help get people back to work. So there was all this effort on the summer camps and summer lessons and and the parents, right, in the consumer response survey are like, no way I'm going to send my kid to that. So even though you told me it was okay, and even though I understand, if they're not tested, blah, 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 right? So there's a part of it that is factually based, and then there's a larger part, which most economists will tell you what's going to dictate the timeline of recovery is how people feel, how safe they feel, how comfortable they feel. Do they feel like their job is still intact so that they can spend that discretionary money? You are in this place of, fight and flight, and these are like heavy human decisions. So we're going back to our really base emotions. And even if all the science in the world told you it was okay, you don't believe it and you're not going to do it until you see it yourself. So what Alan would counter is that for the state of California, because a variety of the reasons that you have called out and just testing is not available in mass, that it's more of a treatment strategy, that as long as you can keep the curve manageable and folks know if something happens, you can go to a hospital for it, then that mindset is what's going to change behavior. Okay, I'm okay. I have a sense of comfort. I know if something goes bad, I don't think anything will go bad, but if it does, I'm okay. I'm not looking at New York emergency rooms. I know that I can go in. So that's an interesting that almost the treatment element is going to do far more than to establish consumer trust and comfort than the testing or even the vaccine would, knowing that that's so far out. So again, there's no good answer, but I will share with you too, our calls on our hotline went from very, very tactical, right? How do I fill out this loan application? What lender can I go to we had to bring in WellSpace Health to train our employees and agents on the call, because these have turned into very emotional, almost social work type of counseling sessions where someone's calling you and they're just bursting into tears, right? And these are business people that just thank God somebody answered the phone. So there's no even understanding of the next step or where to turn or what to do, or very logical questions about testing and compliance and checks. This is like, my world has fallen apart. And you know your constituents, your small business people, that business is their life, right? They put everything they had into it. The name is the name of their kid. It's the sign that they picked. They remember when they opened, the first employee, they've got the dollar on the wall. So any thoughts about strategy, like you can't even get to that. And this is a down fact, but a fact nonetheless. Suicide rates and the calls to suicide prevention have increased 100-fold in the last 3 weeks. So if we just lose sight of folks are emotionally struggling, and particularly our business people, that the death of their business is like a death of their family. It's a whole other level of emotion kind of being wrapped into what they're navigating. And, you know, their employees welcome on back, you know, come in the door and you still have no child care. You may have lost a family member and you weren't able to grieve appropriately during this time because you couldn't see them. I mean, it's just all these crazy human emotions that are, you know, it's business, but if we're not mentally there, you know, we can't even begin to take the next steps. So Dave, I mean, long answer to maybe answer your question, that some of it's science and some of it's emotions and more of it's emotions. And that may be a much more powerful factor than any of the science, because we're just human beings and people are freaked out and it's really affecting the decisions that they're making.
Thanks, Amanda. Appreciate that. Yeah, it's interesting. Just one quick point. I mean, all the things you raise a lot of good points, but that, you know, we're seeing these effects, and I think we're in terms of the emotional stress and such on people. You know, we're frankly not even near the sort of peak of that yet. We're, you know, you mentioned very specifically the suicide prevention hotlines and other things. I mean, yeah, they've had literally, you know, well over 100% increase in utilization and such. So we're seeing that locally here in Yolo County as well, our particular suicide prevention nonprofit. But yeah, it's, you know, obviously, you know, folks are dealing with this sort of circumstance in their own way, but everything is being sort of taxed or to the max right now, and, you know, in terms of the infrastructure. So appreciate all of those points. James, any final, Director Spokley, you got your hand raised there. Go right ahead, Matt.
Thank you, Chair Fredericks. Quick question for you, Amanda. And I had to step out and take a quick phone call, so if you mentioned it, I apologize. But one of the things we're struggling with in my small community of Auburn is all the mom and pop and small businesses that are indicating already to us that even with PPP loans, that they're not going to make it through this. Do you have any sense from your members how many are thinking that this is it, they're done, they're moving on to do something different?
Many of them. I mean, you know, I think we all just need to be kind of real about our economy, right? Go back to the prosperity plan and say, where did they tell us that we had vulnerabilities? And we are, you know, you've got government, you've got healthcare, and it's farm to fork, and that's amazing, and it's part of our history, and it's great. And we've got restaurants and breweries, but also those are retail and hospitality jobs, and that retail, hospitality, and tourism has been hit obviously harder than others because those aren't, you know, they're low margin businesses anyway that are often a labor of love, and you didn't have cash reserves. So, you know, they weren't really built for that. And as much as you can pivot, right? So we've been encouraging people to do that. If you can have an online marketplace, if you can do curbside, if you can sell gift cards, if you can do a cooking class, you know, with your head chef, if you can't, anything that you could possibly do to reach your client now, please do. This is that time, particularly for small business. All those things you knew you were supposed to do, like get everybody in a database and call your customers and build, you know, authentic relationships. Now is the time to do that. But if you can't do that, taking on debt might very much not be the right thing for you to do. And we've been doing an abundant amount of counseling on the SBDC side, just talking you through particularly that mom and pop small business, that their heart and soul is in that business. And they're now looking in front of a loan underwriter saying, do I mortgage my house? Do I mortgage all my equipment? I mean, that's the only collateral I have. And, you know, we're trying to coach people through, that's a choice you can make, but also think about 6 months from now. And if you can't keep that payroll on and you can't do all that, and then that loan comes due, you know, if you had a bad Q4 2019, now is probably not the time to double down on debt. You're just going to have to call it what it is. And if you can get creative in those new pivoted models, great. If you can't, then maybe you can't. And maybe it's a, so, what we encourage folks to do though is everything's negotiable, ask. So if you can go to your lender, you may already have a line of credit and they're willing to do 6 months of deferral. You may, or just ask them. I mean, the worst they're going to say is no, it's no right now. You got nothing to lose. Call your landlord, see if there's anything they could do. They've got mortgages to pay too, but maybe they own the property outright and you can wait 6 months. But also be mindful of like, what are you deferring to later and what are you really having abated? And if you're kicking the can 6 months and now you've encumbered your assets, that's not strategically going to position you for the future. So these are truly the heartbreaking conversations we're having with folks all the time. And I encourage any of you, SBDC is free. They can have a free counselor. Just call, we'll get you to the right territory, just to talk you through your business model. And a counselor could tell you, you know what, all the decisions you're making look great, thumbs up. So at least you got some feedback and you're not in a vacuum. Or they may say, I've looked at your numbers in your strongest quarter of our highest consumer feedback, strongest economy, you were at 2% margin. So we're just going to call it a day and it is what it is. Or, you can run it, but it's a hobby. This isn't a business anymore. It's a hobby that you do because you love it and don't expect any revenue from it. Like all of those things are choices that you can make, but sometimes it takes that third party counselor to maybe ask those really hard emotional decisions that someone who has run that restaurant for 35 years, they can't even think about. They remember when their kids were little running around through the kitchen, and now you want me to strategize about liquidating my assets. I emotionally can't make that leap. And that's real hard. It's hard stuff, but that's why we're here, right? To help walk people through that. Nobody is alone. There's plenty of resource to have somebody to talk to.
So in my small little town, we're projecting based on all of our interviews and conversations we've been having with our brick and mortar retail spaces that up to maybe 30% are not going to make it. They're not going to be on the backside of this. And for all of us on the elected side, that is a shocking realization, particularly for cities where we rely, most of us rely heavily on our sales tax revenues, some more than others. And I've had my city manager and my finance director basically working full time trying to figure out where we're going to be and how this is going to look. And we're projecting a 30 to 40% drop in revenues. What do we do with all of our employees? What do we do with our police? What do we do with our fire? I mean, I appreciate what you guys are doing on the business side because that's critically important to try to save and get folks moving in the right direction from the business side of things. Our reality is, looking at what are we doing from a local governance standpoint, because it's pretty bleak outlook right now.
Right. Well, and you probably already know this, so preaching to the choir, I'm sure, but had that specific conversation with the congressional teams this morning and hammer them. I mean, now is also the time they got to bring in dollars for cities and counties. And, as y'all can imagine, I mean, it's food fight in DC right now. So whatever stories, real stories that you can put into the hands of those congressional teams, they're fighting for it on the floor every day. And this is, this isn't a political thing. It's a regional thing. And guys, you need to bring resources down to our region. Nobody can argue that. And I don't think, constituency can't fathom the long-term repercussions of sales tax and property tax loss and how it's going to affect city services. I mean, they're just in it right now. But anything we can do to help tell that story, but blow up Matt and blow up Glenda and get those stories in their hands because they're on the floor every day.
Thank you, Amanda. Thank you, Chair Pritchard.
Great, thanks so much, appreciate it. James, you want a few comments to wrap this up?
Yeah, thanks, Chair Ferks, and Amanda, thank you for your leadership through this, what is truly a disaster, right, that is unfolding before us. We talk a lot about disaster preparedness and resilience, and we are all being tested. I admire I admire your steady hand through all of this. So thanks for being here. I knew this was going to be a lively discussion. You get a lot of questions. You framed it very nicely, I think, when you said, I think it was, react and then kind of recover. So we're still in some ways in the reacting mode. We hope we're getting into recovery mode. And then probably beyond that, we can debate the R word, but resilience perhaps, right? Economic resilience. And so just to come back to what you said earlier, just to wrap it up for the SACOG board members, directors, this prosperity strategy that we have been a partner with the Chamber and Valley Vision and GSAC and many others, 30 plus organizations. We do believe it's more relevant than ever. There will be a big recovery piece of this, but we're looking at the next couple of weeks to release it as we move from reaction to recovery. We are one of 4 partners on that report. It is coming out the next couple of weeks. We'll keep you posted on it. And as I said, and there's a lot in there. I don't know, Amanda, if you've made a decision on the Kansas City trip, but I was very excited for the Chamber to go to Kansas City in September because that is a region where the Council of Governments has absolutely partnered with the business community very intentionally around economic prosperity and economic resilience. They are very similar to us in many, many ways, including doing a lot of data and dashboarding and measuring themselves and holding themselves accountable. Again, all of those things I think are still very relevant. So just for the SACOG board members, prosperity strategy, formal release next couple of weeks, big emphasis on recovery in the time that we live in, but just as important than ever. And remember, one of the 3 clusters that Amanda mentioned is innovative and advanced mobility. So everything we're doing in Civic Lab, everything that a lot of you have really supported the last couple of years, we see part and parcel to the future economy of this region, centered on innovation. So thanks, Amanda.
Yeah, thanks again.
My
Amanda.
pleasure.
I really appreciate it.
Of course. And y'all know where to find me. So if there's anything you want to talk about offline, please reach out anytime.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amanda.
Excellent. So, well, with that, so we're going to move to the last item here. And it's actually, we promised folks to be off the phone by 2:15. We're just a few minutes behind schedule, but we did have that little bit of an interruption in between items there. So this is just going to be the sort of impact on SACOG's work plan due to the COVID crisis. James is going to present this item, and we'll probably make this 5 minutes or less an item and get everyone out of here.
Mr. Chair, maybe in the interest of time, and I know we appreciate your patience as we work through some technical issues early on. Renee, maybe we'll skip the PowerPoint. You have that, you've been sent the PowerPoint. I just wanted a number of you that I've been talking to over the last 6 weeks in the midst of the shelter in place and the pandemic and the crisis have asked me, how does this affect what SACOG is doing? How does it affect your work going forward, right? Which is the question that we should all be asking. So I just want to bring your attention to a few things. The Policy Innovation Committee this morning got a presentation on the fiscal impacts like everybody else. We're going to have those fiscal impacts. We're going to manage as best we can. There's a lot that we've done over the last couple of years to do some cost controls and to put in place and to manage a budget and have a reserve. So you'll hear more about that. The Policy Innovation Committee just adopted a budget for fiscal year 21 this morning that anticipated some cuts. We know we're going to have to come back as the full extent of the economic crisis becomes clearer. There's a lot also in terms of the delay, the redesign, the downsizing of certain projects and programs. This perhaps is all obvious to you. Chair Frericks, one of your many initiatives, the mega region effort now with an MTC Bay Area and San Joaquin County. We had a big in-person event planned for the end of August, right? These things are being rethought as we talk right now by the staff. We're not giving up necessarily on these initiatives because we think that those economic ties in the mega region are more important than ever, but we're rethinking and rescoping a lot of these. The Innovative Mobility Accelerator I just mentioned a second ago, that we actually had a lot of really interesting applications come in from across the 6-county region, sort of the next version of Civic Lab. It was going to be the Rapid Sprint. we just don't have the capacity right now amongst many of your staff to be able to engage in the next few weeks and kick it off. But we're not going to give that up. We're going to delay it, but we're still we're asking some of the teams to rethink their project applications. But we believe that come the end of the summer, early fall, that Innovative Mobility Accelerator will be up and running. There may be some online components to it, but again, back to the prosperity strategy may be more important than ever. And finally, I just wanted to end on drawing your attention to a couple of the opportunities that might be surfacing here in the midst of the crisis and what is otherwise pretty bleak news. You know, I mentioned the Policy Innovation Committee this morning. If you were on that meeting call, you heard a presentation from Monica Hernandez around telework. So while workplaces are going to begin to open, how might we actually take some of the lessons we're learning around telework, remote work, and actually make some of that stick? In other words, it's how might we make this part of the way that the Sacramento region does business for those jobs that are available and able to allow for remote work? Imagine if we could get 1 to 2 days a week on average as we reopen of employees teleworking. Frankly, we may have to commit to that just given the reopening and distancing requirements. Also, in terms of the recovery mode and opportunities, economic stimulus, infrastructure as a stimulus. So we are working with PCTPA and EDCTC on compiling a list both for transportation projects that are shovel ready, but also for non-transportation, water, sewer, flood control, innovative mobility, electric vehicle deployment, affordable housing and tax credits, all of those things. We're trying to take advantage of this moment we have in time. Whether Congress will do an infrastructure stimulus bill, we don't know, but we want to be prepared, and even better, we want to arm them with some information about what our region would do and how ready we are. And then finally on the stimulus, we have a letter that's circulating. Many of you have signed on that letter to Governor Newsom's Economic Recovery Task Force, but really trying to reframe green means go, and a lot of the things that a lot of our infill areas and our commercial corridors need as an economic stimulus. So those are opportunities. As it is in my slides, I end by saying, are there some pivots that we have forgotten, or opportunities that you see out there that perhaps we should consider trying to assist and to help on? Are there things that we can do, big or small, for your jurisdiction in this time of the crisis and the disaster, or even coming out of it, ways in which we can help? So these are the things we're thinking about. This was meant to be sort of a kickoff to a conversation about how this is all changing our work, but I wanted to at least put a couple of things out there verbally for the Strategic Planning Committee to consider, give some thought on, respond now if you would like, or certainly happy to continue the conversation with all of you offline.
No, thanks very much, James. Yeah, just say if there are any directors with questions or comments, please speak up. And I'm glad to know. Clearly, it's important that staff is thinking about this, and I mean, the budget and fiscal impacts alone are going to change things for the organization. So, I think it's important to also understand how SACOG's work is going to be able to help all of us at a local level in the months ahead. There's so much uncertainty out there that I think it'll be important to figure out how staff can help find new opportunities in the midst of this situation. So. Any members or directors with questions or comments? I have not seen anyone raising their hand in the chat box here on the side, looking at the videos as well. Okay. Well, I think that's pretty much it for our agenda today. So any other final questions or comments? Otherwise, we will adjourn the meeting. Great.
Thanks, Lucas.
Thanks so much. Thanks, everybody. Good to see you all today. Take care.
Thank
Have
you,
a good
Lucas.
day. Be well.
Bye.
Thanks, James. Thanks, Lucas.
Yep. Bye, guys. Take
Thanks,
care.
Brian. Good to see you.
Yep, same here.
Likewise.